Woo.
Hi, everyone, and everyone watching. Thank you so much for tuning in to Studio C70, Committee of 70's Student Candidate Interview Series. I'm Sam Foreman, the PA Civics Coordinator at C70. I'm welcoming now Mark Pinsley, a Democrat running for Auditor General of Pennsylvania. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Huskins' 11th grade honors government class at Elizabethtown Area High School. We're going to be conducting the interview. Thank you so much, everyone, again for watching, and enjoy the interview.
Thank you.
Hi there, Mr. Pinsley. Can you hear us?
I can. Thank you.
Yeah. So would you mind, for my students, I'm kind of off camera. You're getting more of them than me.
I see your back wall there too. Wow, that's kind of amazing.
Well, we'll freak you out even more. How about that?
Holy mackerel. Okay.
Yeah, I have a problem. So, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a little introduction of yourself,
Yep.
and we'll kind of turn it over to these guys for questions. So, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Thank you. So my name is Mark Pinsley. I'm running for Auditor General. My background is, I went to Kutztown University. I started there and got my degree in finance. Actually, I ended my degree in Northeastern University. When I was running, we were in the middle of a recession. I was paying for it myself. I kind of ran out of money, started working and going to school at the same time. I'm sure many of you guys are going to be going through that same thing. I then ended up getting my MBA from a school called Kelly School of Business, also in finance. I started my own business in my early 20s, raised about $1 million to get that started, sold it, and then worked for large companies most of the remainder of my life, up until about 10 years ago, where I bought a small company in the skincare industry. So we sell to spas and dermatologists. And then I got involved in politics. So I got involved sort of later in life. And my goal was just, I wanted to be for the people, not the powerful. There's a lot of stuff going on in these last few years. Because my background is in finance, I went for controller. I didn't even know what controller was at the time from a government perspective. But basically what the controller does is we audit payroll every 2 weeks to make sure it's correct. We audit vendor payments, but you can do a lot more with the position. And so I ended up doing a bunch of things that we can talk about in a little bit if you wish. But the controller and the auditor general are basically very similar positions. You get to audit money that the government spends. And so do you want me to go into some of the things I've done?
No, we've actually done a little bit. Well, if you want to go into stuff that you bring to the table, that's fine. I thought you were going to go into more of what the Auditor General does. We've kind of done a little prep with that already.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what the Auditor General does basically is very similar to the controller. We audit all the money that comes into the state and all the money goes out of the state. So when you think about the state level position, there are many different agencies in the state. So you can think of that like the prison system. You can think about that as the state police. You can think about that as the Department of Health and Human Services. All of them spend money. And so because they spend money, we get to audit that and see if they're spending that properly. But you can dig in more, like numbers can tell a story. And so it's an opportunity to go in and really show, what is happening and explain it to people in a way that they can understand. That's why I'm interested in the position very specifically, because, most people don't really care for numbers. And they don't look for the stories that the numbers tell. And so I view our role as bringing it down a notch and really helping the public understand how numbers impact their lives.
Okay. We want to turn it over to you guys, let you guys ask some questions since we are a little bit behind, but I'm going to, just so you know, I'm going to slide over a little podium here. That way you have an idea of who is addressing you.
Sure.
And then we'll just have folks come on up to the podium. Sorry, guys, that's a little close to you, but we'll make it work. So who would like to come up and throw out a question? Trust me, he doesn't bite because it's Zoom. Come on. Be brave. You're going to be voters soon. Going to be all grown up. Nobody? Nobody? What? Oh, boy. Oh. All right, Tyler, go up there.
You're welcome. I know.
Yes.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah, we'll zoom that up for you there.
Do you think that being a Democrat in a particularly red county will hinder your ability in the elections this year?
Yeah, so for the primary, which is the first election, obviously only Democrats vote there.
Thanks.
But it does make it difficult. You know, Pennsylvania in and of itself is a little bit more Republican than it is Democrat. But the work that I have done, and this is the nice thing about numbers, is like it's nonpartisan. So, you know, one of the things that I did was an audit on children and youth. And so this is an agency that basically looks at an agency that goes out and helps people, or in some cases removes children from homes because there's abuse. And what I found was a doctor that was misdiagnosing child abuse, right? And so what she was doing was she was saying your mom or father was abusing you when you actually weren't being abused. And when that happened, you would be taken away from your parents and put into foster care. I found that I did a report on 15 different families that happened to, where the kids were removed from their parents. And these kids were, you know, as young as 2 months old and as old as 17 years old. So like it could happen to you. And after I put out the report, it turned out that it wasn't 15 families, but it was 150 families where children had been removed from their parents. That is a very nonpartisan issue. You're doing this for the families. But I do think Tyler was correct in that, like today, we're very divided along, you know, Democrat or Republican. So yeah, it's going to make it more difficult just being a Democrat.
Next person. Come on. Come on. Owen, come on up. As best you can, squeeze in there.
There we go. That's kind of comfy. Hello. I
Hi.
am wondering, I have read that previous Auditor General sort of removed a program that like audited schools, and being high school students, do you think that it would be important to reinstate that, or are you going to leave that how it is if you were elected?
I'm going to reinstate that. The problem really is twofold. One is that the Auditor General's budget was lower. And so that was why he chose not to do that any longer. The problem is he could have gone and asked for more money so that he could have reinstated that audit. The problem is that audit is a compliance audit. So what it means is like you're auditing things like, does the bus driver have certification? Do your teachers, are they certified? Is the school actually showing the right number of students? Like the more students that they put into their reports, the more they get paid. So they're incentivized to increase the number of students that they show. So that's important to put back in. But there's a lot more things that you can do. Like that is one type of audit. Like the audits that I'm more interested in are ones that are impactful and tell a story. Because like that audit had been going on like since Corbett's time. And Corbett reduced the funding of schools by, I think, over $2 billion in total during his period as governor. And so, like, for example, one of the things that we can look at is what are the number of kids that can't read at level by the third grade? So from, 0 to third grade, you're being taught to read. From fourth grade on, you're reading to learn. And so if you're not at that reading to learn stage, it really has an economic impact, both on you, the student, on your family, on your community, and ultimately on the society, because we're going to have to pay. And that is the beginning of the school to prison pipeline. That's where that starts. So those are the kind of audits I'm more interested in. I'm not saying we shouldn't do the compliance audits like what used to be done. I'm just saying that they didn't have the kind of impact that gets people to invest in schools, which is what we need, greater investment in schools.
Yeah, come on up. And if you guys could, when you come up, just kind of introduce yourself so we know who we're addressing, and then you can ask your question.
Oh,
Yeah, told you, it's tight up there.
my name's Jumbo, and you use the word audit pretty regularly. Could you expand on the meaning of that? For like, when we research for this, we focus more on like the state money. Can you talk more about like auditing certifications and what exactly that means?
Yeah, thank you. So auditing is basically looking at, think about your checkbook don't even know if you guys use checkbooks anymore.
At this time, the high school will go into a stay put. Please, remain in the middle school sections of the building. Thank you.
Never a dull moment here. Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
Okay. I hope I didn't start it. So auditing is basically like you're looking at every single payment that has been made, and you're looking at every single cash receipt that has come in. So money going out and money coming in. And then you're verifying that it's actually done. So properly. So for example, let's say you are in McDonald's, right? You're the person that's in charge of the cash. At the end of the day, that cash box, that cash register should have X dollars in it based on the number of orders that you've taken and the amount of change that you have given. And an audit of that will look at the cash box to see whether or not the actual dollars in that box match all of the money that you gave out and all of the money you received. That's true throughout the Pennsylvania state government. Like, you will be spending money on, let's say, judges, and you'll be receiving money from, let's say, fines and fees that go on. And so our role is to see whether or not in the bank, the amount of money is represented properly between those two things, the in and out of the money. But those can tell stories. Like those kind of things. I mean, I know that sounds like really boring, but those kind of things can tell stories because all of a sudden you find, someone that's stealing. For example, one of the things that I found years ago was there was this guy in a bar, and like for whatever reason, we were going through like one of the whiskeys very quickly. Like it was just like unusually quickly, and sometimes that can be like a bartender pouring, but we actually had bartenders measuring the pours. And so what we found was that one of the bartenders had gone up into the ceiling, poked a hole in the tube, and was draining the whiskey out so that he could have that and he would resell it and then take the cash for it. So like the only way we found that was because we were auditing the in and out and our expected amount that we were supposed to receive on that whiskey. And so that's how we found that. And we ended up firing that employee, obviously.
Yeah, don't steal and resell. That's more story. Other questions, guys? If folks want to come up? Yeah, come on. As best you can. I don't have a sophisticated setup.
My name's Joel. So I read about the dark money cases on your campaign page.
Yep.
Didn't know about, what is your plan to investigate and address those problems?
So the problem with dark money, of course, is that it's hard to find. But one of the things that happens is what people will do is they will create a committee or a PAC, which is basically a place that you can put money and then you can disperse it. So, for example, if you guys were like, oh, we want to give Mark, $200, well, how do you do that? You would write a check to Friends of Mark Pinsley, and then I would put that into a bank account called Friends of Mark Pinsley, and then I could write from that bank account to others from Friends of Mark Pinsley. In order to do that, you have to get what's known as an EIN number, which is something that the government gives you. And then you also have to get this committee formed from the state. So now you get those two things. Now the question is, do you ever report on any of the money that you've received or any of the money that you've dispersed? And there are tons of committees out there that are not reporting on the money they receive or the money they disperse. And if they don't have a competitor, like, so I have a competitor in my race, well, he's going to keep me honest, right? Because he's going to be looking at my reports, he's going to be seeing things I'm doing, and then like question me, and I'll do the same to him. Well, if there's no competitor, if you're just using that committee on the side, all of a sudden you could be donating and people won't even know that you're doing the donations. And that's one of the things that we want to stop, because now we don't know who is funding me, perhaps, or someone else. And the best way for you guys to make a decision is to who to vote for, is to know who's funding our campaigns.
Any questions? Any questions? Your chance. I'll throw one at you, Mr. Pinsley. So One of the things that I had happened to see in the media when I was kind of looking at the campaign and kind of looking at, obviously we have the Republican candidate, you mentioned your competitor in the race. There seemed to be a little bit of a dust up earlier in the campaign involving a video that was circulating and some questions about that, and you had kind of pointed that out. I was curious if you could expand on that. Like, has that had any noticeable difference in the race from your opinion?
Okay, well, let me start with what the video was. So the video was my competitor is actually running two races at the same time. So he's running for Auditor General and he's also running for state rep, which is who he is now. He's already a state rep. Part of the process is when we want to run, we have to go out and get signatures. So you go from house to house and you get people to sign saying, yes, we think that you should be on the ballot. Really complete waste of time because you're talking to people who don't know you and they're just willing to sign something. I honestly believe it's just useless. In any case, he was in someone's house. That person that he's in, she was the mother-in-law of one of his competitors on the other side. And so he was asking her to have this guy named John drop out of the race. So, hey, mother-in-law, can you please ask John to drop out of the race? And oh, by the way, and the mother-in-law was basically saying, I don't want to have him drop out of the race. I'm gonna support you for Auditor General. I don't think I have a competitor there. And he was basically saying, well, I do have a competitor, but he's this big racist and he doesn't like black people. And then that competitor posted that video along with others. So the son-in-law of the person's house that he went to. Of course, I'm getting texts all over the place, like, are you a racist or whatever? And so I attacked him on it, basically giving him an opportunity to make an apology. I basically said, here's this guy behind closed doors. He's making these kind of comments. What does he mean? And eventually the press did pick that up. So it was all over the news. It was on the Philadelphia Inquirer, is a big newspaper out here. It was also in all my local newspapers, so Lehigh Valley newspapers. And so he got questioned over and over and over again on it. And basically his comment was no comment. Like, I don't want to get into the weeds on that. Really, all he had to do was apologize, right? And that would have been sort of the end of it. But he chose not to do that, nor did he give a reason for why he called me a racist. So the real question comes down to your question, which is, did this hurt him or not? And I would say no, it didn't. And I'm very disappointed in my party for that. Because realistically, when someone came out and said, this person is a racist, right? We've done that to Trump. Our party has done that to Trump. They've done that to others. Well, when it's your own party, you should be taking responsibility for it as well. And what they ended up doing, quite honestly, was they continued to endorse him. So, he was endorsed by Planned Parenthood. He was endorsed by all of these groups, where what they could have done is just stay out of the race. Like, say, okay, well, we're not gonna go for Mark necessarily, but we're not gonna go for him either because of what he said without any justification. So going back to it, I don't think it affected him at all.
Okay. Other thoughts, guys? Other questions you want to throw out there?
It was a long way home. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah, come on up.
I'm Elena.
Hi.
Why should we vote for you instead of the current Auditor General?
Okay, so there's two things there. So the first vote is coming soon, which is the primary general. This is the primary. So that's me against another Democrat. If you're a Democrat, why should you vote for me? In this particular election, it would be because I am currently the controller. I have the skills and the qualifications necessary. The guy that I'm running against, he's gotten more endorsements than I have, but he doesn't have the qualifications. He's never done the job. I've done the job.
Oh,
okay, then it comes. Sorry, again.
No, you're good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So then the second one is like, presuming I win the primary and then I'm running in the general against a Republican. So now it's a Democrat against a Republican. Ultimately, the question is, well, the Republican, what he does is he does the job as it's defined in the state and doesn't audit anything more than that. So whatever we're required to audit is what he audits. I do the same thing as controller, but I also audit more. So I audited healthcare, for example, and I found that we spend $30 million on healthcare a year. I found $9 million in waste that we brought back to the taxpayers of Lehigh County. Like, that is not an audit that was required. That was an audit that I wanted to do. You know, when I talked to you earlier about the audit, looking at the children and youth, that was not an audit that was required. That was an audit that I chose to do because I feel like every dollar that this government spends, and that's over $45 billion, impacts people. And so how does it impact people? Look, it doesn't matter if their money is going to a judge and it impacts that judge's lifestyle, or if it goes, that judge rules on all of these different people. So if you're just doing what's required, you're going to get what you've always got. And so, and that's a fine thing to do if that's what you wish to do. That's what the current Auditor General does. For me, I would expand the role and really look at other things that I think impact people. I've always been for the people, not the powerful, and that would be my role there as well.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, students, for the excellent questions, and Mark for joining us to answer them. Election day
thanks for having me.
is Tuesday, April 23rd.
Yeah.
We hope, whether you're watching this on our ballot guide, you can find this and the other Studio C70s for the primary session for 2024, youtube.com, and the name is Committee of 70. And we hope to see everyone out there on election day. And thank you so much again, everyone, for participating.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for